And so we're back. We've got this marked up, ready to go. The next thing we want to do is we want to cut off this excess section down here on that nice little taper. We want to remove as much as we can without going across the line, which means we may not be removing too much, but the little that we do remove is really going to help the disc sander and not clog up it, and it's going to stop our project from burning. And burning ruins the project and it ruins our sanding discs, and since they're not cheap, let's go ahead and let's cut these like a normal human. Now, traditionally, I would say come through and use a bench hook. So we're going to come through and use a bench hook. I'm going to throw this in the vise. I'm going to line this up and I'm going to clamp this down, especially because we're sawing on an angle this time. And you always want to make sure that when you're sawing on an angle, you've got everything as sturdy as possible, because if it's not as sturdy as possible, you're going to cause some issues. From here, grab that tenon saw, make sure to hold it like a gun, and come back here, and I'm going to pull back 3 times. Now, as you can see, I'm staying away from my line, but I'm still removing 3 or 4 mil there. And that's the goal. Once you've got one side started to be cut on an angle, go ahead and do the other side. And look at that. Looking reasonably good. Now, let's go over to the sander and let's sand this excess off. Now, the very first thing you need to do when using a sander is to tie up any loose hair, long hair, loose bangles. Make sure all jewelry is removed as soon as you enter the workshop anyway. And make sure you've got nothing loose on you like apron strings or jumper sleeves or long arm sleeves. You need to get them all removed. Then we want to go through and chuck on some PPE, including some glasses, potentially a dust mask if you don't have any extraction systems going. And then we should be pretty right to get into it. The next step we want to do is come through and we want to grab that marking gauge from earlier. Now, if you have lost the angle, just go ahead, reset that up and set that up to the line to get your mark, and make sure that there's nothing sticking at the back here, because you don't want that to be off on a weird angle there. Anyway, from there, let's go ahead and set this up. So we can come across here, grab our sliding bevel and move this in, and then after loosening your guide there, come across and do that up. Now this is going to work so that our system is pretty much locked and loaded into giving us the correct angle every time. So we can go like this way to get that nice angle and then flip it this way. What you don't want to do is do that and then flip it the wrong direction, which you should be able to tell pretty quickly and pretty easily by your markings. So set up so you know it's going to sand off this down to the line here, and then just rotate up and across when you're done. Now remember, with sanding, 2 seconds on, 2 seconds off. Guys, congratulations on sorting this out. It doesn't only look good, it looks great. But we're not done just yet. The next thing we want to come through and do is add in our dowels coming through. Now that is of course, if your product is nice and aligned on the top and bottom. If it's not aligned on the top and bottom, it's time to go through and just sand that down to being nice and flat. Please take care with your sanders and make sure it's not going to flick it out of the way by making sure that the whole product is to the left-hand side of the center of that disc sander. Be cautious not to reshape the mallet head, because that's not what we're after. We just want to have it nice, clean, and flat. Anyway, let's not waste any more time, and let's get back to marking up for our dowel holes. Now, why are we adding some dowel holes? Well, because dowel holes are delicious and nutritious. Look at these dowel joints coming through here. Don't they look great? Look, I'm not going to wait for your response because I know they do. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to mark this up using our sliding bevel and a metal rule, and then we're going to go drill it in over at the drill press. So let's get cracking. Boom, here we are, we've got our product, and we want to make sure that our marking gauge is still set to the correct angle, which, believe it or not, it is, because nobody's touched it other than me. From here, we want to come in and we're going to measure in 15 millimeters. We are from each end of the top end here. 15 millimeters, and do a mark. 15 millimeters over here and do a mark. Then we're going to get this sliding bevel, line it up and draw in our mark. Now this can be a bit tricky trying to hold everything, so ask a friend. After we've got that line there, now we can just mark down each line and mark in 15 millimeters. So 15 down, 15 across, and 15 up from the base. So you've got this ready and done. It's all marked up and we're ready to go ahead and drill. For this, you're gonna need a 9.5 millimeter drill bit. Ideally, you've got a brad point drill bit, but if not, your traditional drill bits are also gonna work fine. It's very important when we're drilling this to have a piece of scrap at the back, scrap timber, held close up against it to minimize any tear out. Because we're gonna drill the whole way through this piece and we wanna make sure that there is no chance of tear out coming from underneath at any stage, because that's gonna make it look really bad, really ugly. So let's jump across at the drill press and let's set this up. So before we even look at the safety considerations for this drill, we need to go through and we need to get our timber ready. So you're gonna wanna get a piece of scrap timber. I've just got a piece of Merbau scrap here, and you wanna tape it to the back side of your product, and you wanna tape that so it's nice and held tightly together. For that, just grab some masking tape and wrap it around. Now you're gonna need 4 small-ish pieces of masking tape to get this set up. So when you're applying masking tape to your piece, we don't actually want to wrap the whole way around. It's super annoying and it's not required. I'm just going to go up the base a bit and then come through, hold this nice and tight. Get some stretch happening in that masking tape and tie that around. We're going to do that on all 4 sides. So we've got our piece tied up here, ready to go. And the next thing we need to look at is, of course, making sure we've got all the correct safety precautions put in place before we even touch the drill. Now, the very first thing you need to do is make sure any long hair is tied up in a nice tight bun. We need to go ahead then and make sure any loose bangles, rings, any jewelry should have already been removed. But if you've got anything on, remove it. And any loose shirt pieces, clothing items, tied up and put away, because we don't want anything to get caught in our drill press here. From there, we want to grab our nice bit and first our glasses and throw them straight over your eyes, because you want to keep seeing for the rest of your days. Now, from here, we want to come through and we want to clamp up. Now, as you know, mine already has an interesting clamping system. So it's always interesting. And I'm going to come through before I even clamp, and I'm going to set this up to make sure that's going central for me, like so. And then I'm going to tighten my clamp up. So that's not moving anywhere. From here, I can start my drill up. And when I'm doing this, I'm gonna go down a little way and then bring it back up to allow it to actually clear out some of the timber. Because the last thing we wanna do is have an issue with this clogging up, overheating and damaging the drill bit, damaging our job, and not doing a nice clean cut.
So we've just gone through and drilled in our 4 holes. Turn it over, and as you can see here, we've actually got a fair bit of tear out coming out and happening on some of this Merbau here, because, well, we just ripped through it with a drill. And drilling out the other side of another piece is never a good idea. It always tends to rip out unless you have some form of backing timber here. As you can see, that's really chipped out and would have left our mallet looking really quite ugly. So we can rip this off, this backing piece off now. And as you can see, we pull this through and we have near perfect holes. They are spectacularly good. So get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. And let's set ourselves up for the next step.